Vidyamkaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti. The wrong ways of practice of religion may help you to subdue your desires. It will not help you to eliminate it. Sublimation will not happen. And we need to understand the difference between subduing a desire and sublimating a desire. Now, it is so easy and it is so appealing. Subduing is more appealing to the mind than elimination. Because in subduing the desire, it is just a trade-off. You are not actually working on anything. It is only a good trading. Quite profitable, that is. At least the mind is convinced that it is worth. The boy says, I am interested to watch a cricket match. I wanted to watch a cricket match. A new movie of my favorite star is releasing. There is a desire. So how do you subdue the desire? You give him another desire, a better desire, another productive desire, valuable desire, agreeable desire. So when you introduce that, this desire which is there, the mind says, okay, I will wait. This is the trade-off. This is the trading. This is the negotiation. So the mind feels what? It is a win-win situation for me. Tomorrow there being an exam, so I can, if I sit and study, I will get good marks. If I get good marks, I will get into good university, good job, better life. For all that I have to sacrifice is what? Not actually sacrifice, just push it by one day. Instead of going for that movie on the first day of the release, watch the movie after 2 days. What is a big loss? It'll appear worthy. It look, yes, worthy man to wait for 2 days. For all that, it's worthy. This is called a trading. This is what we do in the name of dealing with desires. So the subduing the desire is what he says. He says, for a while. And then what happens? It comes back with a regenerated energy. So, when you are subduing the desire, what you are doing is you are temporarily quietening the noise of the desires, that craving, or the effects of the desire. Either you are quietening the desire or the effects of the desires, you are quietening it. That's about all. For a period of time, for a temporary period. After that, what's going to happen? It will come back. But what is interesting is, during that period, when it is quiet, we take that itself to be transformation. I had overcome that desire. I had overcome my weaknesses. The temporary one is enough. But to eliminate the desire, there will be resistance. The mind will resist it. If you tell that boy, drop that desire for that movie itself, drop that desire for that sport itself, meaning watching. I'm not talking about playing. You're just going to be a spectator where your participation has no relevance at all to the game. Whether you watch or you don't watch, the game is going to go on. It's not that only when they are there it is going to be happening. It's not like that. They are going to be playing there. You are totally irrelevant. But you get an entertainment out of it, which is too local. Don't ever engage, spend your time or energy on things where you are going to be a mute spectator. You're just going to be a spectator. It is a colossal waste of time. You might as well go and play on the streets. You're not playing like a professional. It's a local, amateurish. We say it doesn't matter. Why? Because this is where you are actually participating. Since you are participating, this is far, far superior. So don't waste your time. Get on to something higher. Switch over to something superior in life. All this when you say, the mind will immediately start resisting it. Because the resistance comes from the mind. Why mind resists? Because essentially it doesn't want to put in that effort. So it will resist. So now in the temporary period of time, how will I know? This is the next question we come to. I'm not sure whether I'm putting in effort. Is this effort directing itself towards subduing the desires or elimination of desires? I'm putting in the effort now. But how will I know? How do you understand whether you are sublimating it or you are only substituting it? Only subduing the whole thing. First indication is there are a few indications we have. First indication, number one. Not in terms of hierarchy, I'm saying. I'm just giving 1, 2, 3. That's about it. There's no rules here. But first thing that strikes is this. When you are putting in effort to subdue the desires, how do you know that, sir? One of the indications is the highest goal of life will not be inspiring. Without any inspiration of the higher goal, a vision, the spiritual practices will continue. See, you are not thinking of higher. There is no higher ideal, but the practice is going on. Practices are continuing. You are doing something in the name of spiritual, be it in the form of some rituals, or be it in the form of some devotional prayers, or be it in the form of study and contemplation and discussions, debates. You can do whatever, anything, depending upon whatever you are engaged in. But in that activity, there is no inspiration in you towards the higher. And what is the nature of that inspiration? The mind gets associated with the higher. The mark of higher is this, remember. You will never get acclimatized, or you will never get neutralized. That's called higher. Right? You go to a temple. First time you visit the temple, how inspiring it is. Hmm? First time you read a book, how inspiring it is. Subsequently, after a period of time, what has happened? After a few repeated contacts, you get neutralized to it. The mark of higher is neutralization not possible there. And every contact will enhance, amplify. The inspiration should get more. You should be more and more inspired to go to the temple. You should be having more and more inspiration to sing that song. That's why he used to ask the person to chant the same mantras, same chanting. When that boy was, 7 years old, he will be introduced this Gayatri mantra. And that fellow has to chant morning, noon, and night till his last breath. He has to go on chanting. What are you? Same mantra, same 2 lines. You have to keep chanting. 3 lines. You have to keep chanting. Same thing. You go on chanting again and again and again and again and again. Same thing when you keep doing it, what will happen? After a point of time, you would lose it. But if it is connected to the higher, the inspiration for that to do will be enlarged. It will not shrink. It will grow. The nature of inspiration is that. Otherwise, it is just a motivation or inducement. You are induced or you are simply motivated. That's about it. Somewhere down the line, you get bored. Somewhere down the line, you get tired. Somewhere down the line, you say, what is there, man? There's no meaning to it. The nature of inspiration in the effort of reducing the desires, the very inspiration where to reduce means you are subduing. In the effort of reducing the desires, your inspiration to reduce your desires and attachments, where to increase, you are in the process of sublimating your desires, eliminating your desires. And if you are in the process, if you have been having that inspiration, the nature of inspiration is such that you will not be dependent on that external source for your inspiration anymore. Otherwise, you have to be dependent. That is why if you see carefully, you can listen to someone talking about Atman Brahman only to few people. If another person were to talk about Atman Brahman, you switch off. No, Atman Brahman. What do you know about Atman Brahman? You switch off. But if the same Atman Brahman were to be spoken of by another person, same Atman Brahman is spoken of in another language, any language for that matter. You see, if it is spoken in that language by that person, it is inspiring to hear. If it is anyone other than that person, we will get lost. No. This is called dependency. I am dependent on that external agency means only if it is coming from that source. Dependent on that particular environment. Then it is subdued. By yourself, you have no power, no caliber. You don't know how to retain that inspiration. don't have the capacity to retain it. When you subdue this, see, this doesn't mean you will disconnect from that source. Remember that. You continue the relationship with that source, not for inspiration. Out of gratitude, you will continue the relationship. You see, your allegiance to that personality or your devotion to the personality, all those things is not, your association is not because of your dependency. Your association is because of gratitude. The whole flavor is different here, remember. Association will continue. In subdue, also association will continue. In elimination, also the association will continue to the source of inspiration. But the flavor is totally different. What is the background here is dependency. What is the background here is gratitude. They are two different things. When you subdue the desires, you tend to give a moral and ethical coloring to the whole idea of yours. You will start giving it a better coloring. In elimination, you would not be giving it any coloring there. You would not talk any moral, ethical stand and all that. I am holier than thou. Stand will not be there. See, in subduing the desires, you tend to take that. When you replace, subduing means when you replace it. When you replace it, you always replace it with what? Always you believe that the replacement is better, isn't it? That is how you convince yourself. I want to replace this with another one. Never you replace with something worse. Even if when you want to replace your car, even if you are going for a second-hand used car, you will not buy a used car which is worse than the existing car of your conditions. Isn't it? You will always go for a slightly better car. So when you subdue, always that subduing or the replacement trade-off, you trade off always with what? You always do that with something of moral, ethical, values, all that you will start talking. That means it is subduing. The one who is in the process of elimination will not get involved with all that. He will say, end block, drop the whole thing. And when you are replacing, what happens? When you are subduing it, it comes back. We have seen that already. It will come back. Like people believe, they have quit smoking. I quit smoking, sir. Then what happens? After a few years, during that few years, he genuinely thinks he has actually overcome the weakness. Is what he genuinely feels. But it comes back with a greater force. And that's what example he gives. Why? When you subdue it, your desires camouflages itself. Cheats you, as it were. What is the cheating? Cold stick and snake, he says. That's the cheating. The cheating of the desire is, it will lie there as though it is dead. As though it has been eliminated. As though it is gone. Nothing. All that it requires is what? So interesting. just to get back to that environment. That's all. Just that conducive environment, when it gets back, the old comes out again. Very, very interesting. It just works like that. Cold stick and snake. For all purpose, the kids, take it out and start playing with it. The moment that comes near that warmth, fire, it gets back to life. Same way, your desires appear to have been dead. But once that conducive environment comes out, all the old things will come back. That's what they call it as habit. It's called as a habit. Remove H, a bit will be there. Remove A, bit is there. Remove B, it will continue. Never go this. So interesting. That's what the desires are. Desires are you are habituated in a particular way to feel, think, do. That desire is a repetition. Repeated thinking, repeated, again and again and again and again and again. You go on repeating it, it becomes a desire. It's a habit. All habits are nothing but desires. See, it will not go away so easy. You need to put in that effort. When you put in that effort, you have to choose. That effort, when you put in, that path is called the spiritual path. And the moment you see there is a path, the moment you discuss about a path, immediately what comes along with it is that path will necessarily have certain obstacles. You cannot have a path without any obstacles. That's not possible. Any undertaking that you take, all undertakings will have certain pitfalls, certain impediments, certain problems will be there. It is a wise man is one who will understand, who will know what are those impediments. He would understand what are those impediments, not just know it, what is the depth of it. It's like you see a pitfall on the road. When you see a pothole, you have to understand immediately what is the distance between your car and the pothole. And then you got to calculate what is the speed in which you are coming. Also, you got to calculate what is the traffic condition on the road, vehicles around you. And then you have to see, what is there a pitfall just after that pothole. There is one pothole. It's not only one pothole. There is another pothole. Now you have to negotiate between these two potholes and you choose. I can't avoid both. Ideally I should avoid both, but unfortunately I can't avoid both. Then what should I do? Then how do you judge it? You judge it based on how deep, how much of damage the first one can cause, how much the damage the second one can cause, how much the damage possibility of, in the name of maneuvering, avoiding the pothole, I meet with an accident. See, all this you need to understand. So first you have to see the pothole, then you have to understand that, and then you have to have a solution for that. See, that's what he is giving here now. Impediments in the spiritual path. What is that? Because any path will have impediments. You can't have a path without any impediments. And what is a spiritual path? Spiritual path is the path designed to eliminate your desires. Thereby, you reach to enlightenment. So the goal is enlightenment, path is elimination of desires. Right? You work where? You drive your vehicle on the road only. That will take you to your desired destination. Right? But at any point of time, when a person is asked, where are you going? You don't say, I am driving on the road. You always refer it to your destination. Destination is enlightenment. The path is elimination of desires. Okay, keep this in mind. Not subduing the desire. So that he has explained already. So don't fall for this. Don't practice these practices. The practices of this negative religion is going to do only this. What is negative religion practice? Karma, bhakti, jnana, yoga, pranayama, meditation. All this, when you practice only to subdue the desires. These wrong practices, negative religion will subdue the desires. Elimination of desires will not. Now, he says, okay, now I am going to start the spiritual path. What are the obstacles? What is the danger? What are the problems that I might encounter there? How prepared I am going to be for that? Is what he is explaining now. Yeah.
Page 271, last paragraph. Impediments in the spiritual path. The true spiritual path is a scientific, methodic process for human redemption. Human beings are steeped in spiritual ignorance. Everywhere people grope in darkness to find peace and happiness in the world. What they need is the light of consciousness that shines within every living soul. The knowledge of the divine self. The process of redemption is clear and simple. Analyze the nature of your inner personality. Assess your spiritual being. Treat it with the compatible spiritual courses. Practice them diligently, consistently, until you gain that supreme knowledge. However, while pursuing the course of spirituality, you must carefully overcome two main impediments that confront you. The first is at the mundane level, which is common to all, while the second is encountered by those who take up the spiritual practices seriously. The common factor in both impediments is the human weakness of becoming attached to the objects of experience. The mind craves for sensual pleasures, emotional feelings, and intellectual concepts. It gets you involved in and attached to the mundane affairs. As a result of your attachment to the world, you lose sight of the spiritual goal. This impedes your progress in the spiritual path.
Yeah. See, the first impediment is explaining is the practice of negative religion. That is the first impediment. He says people take it to this attachment and mundane level. This mundane level, he is not referring to people who are not in the path. See, those who are pursuing materiality and sensuality, he is not referring to those people. He is referring to people who have come into the spiritual path. Having come into the spiritual path, they use the spiritual path for mundane result. Who are they? Just now we have seen that. Just now he has explained. They are the one who are practicing negative religion. See. So, first impediment is what? Is to overcome the materiality of the world. You must overcome the materiality there. Then come to spirituality. Now, the problem is, before they could even overcome the materialistic things, mundane fascinations, they take to spiritual path. What will happen? They will start pursuing it for what then? Material needs, they go to God. Physical comforts, they go to God. Emotional solace, they go to God. For intellectual curiosity, they will go to God. Instead of going to the doctor for health purpose, they go to God. Not that God will not help you. Right? But the idea is he is supposed to be doing it for you. Imagine if you have to be of such a great personality for a great doctor to attend on to you. You have to pay, no? Isn't it? Or else we have in the ordinary doctor will give. If you want a specialist, if you want a great surgeon, they will ask. See, the doctor in the village will appear far, far superior to you. My mother-in-law had to be taken for some purpose to the doctor. To go to the doctor, he comes. Having come back, I just met her, I asked, how is it? Everything is fine. She says, what is this? Everything only the nurse is doing, the doctor is not doing anything. Because, that eye drops and all they put, no. The nurse comes and puts that eye drop and goes. And I am sitting here, people are walking up and down, nobody is even asking me. But in our village, that doctor always asks, how are you feeling? What you had for breakfast? What you had for lunch? Patruva doctor is much better, she says. See, I'm not saying that 10 rupee doctors are useless. See, we had a legendary doctor, such a doctors. It's nothing to do with the price. But the rule is, if you want a higher quality one, you have to be of that caliber. Imagine God has to come and attend to you. People, the moment they get conceived, they go to this temple, Thai Manavar. Sanadhi is there in Trichy. So Lord Shiva has to come and attend for your delivery. What sort of a personality you should be? That all we don't ask. As far as we are concerned, we are the supremost beings in the world. Yes, first overcome that weakness of mundane. This is number 1. Right. Then he goes to the second impediment. The first impediment he gives is this. The first impediment is getting involved in the negative religion. Pursuit of negative religion is the first impediment. Let's see what is the second impediment. Yes.
The second impediment you face is your attachment to spiritual courses, your involvement in bhakti, devotion, jnanam, knowledge, and karma, action. The courses themselves turn out to be most entertaining. They provide you with much greater peace and joy than that provided by your mundane activities. Your mind develops a fascination for the courses themselves and begins to revel in them. Gradually, you become involved in, attached to the practices. It is far more difficult to pull yourself out of spiritual involvement than from mundane involvement. Hence, you continue to merely indulge in their enjoyment. You lose the very purpose of the spiritual path you have undertaken, with no thought of spiritual unfoldment and enlightenment. that becomes a greater obstacle in the spiritual path. Since the entertainment derived from spiritual practices is far superior to that of mundane activities, you become more bound to them. The attachment to the spiritual revelry is more binding than the attachment to worldly pleasure and joy. That explains why the attachment to spiritual courses turns out to be a greater obstacle in the path. You become more deeply rooted in ignorance. You grope in denser darkness. The Isavasya Upanishad in verse 9 cautions humanity of this imminent failing in the spiritual path. Those who are involved and attached to the material world grope in blinding darkness, ignorance, while those who are attached to spiritual courses are lost in greater darkness, ignorance. You must overcome these main obstacles in your spiritual path. Get over your attachment by gaining objectivity in life. You gain objectivity by strengthening your intellect through daily study of Vedantic knowledge. Reflect upon the truths therein. Use that knowledge to maintain objectivity in your material as well as spiritual life. You would then rise above all attachment and involvement. Remember, you take to the spiritual course for your evolvement, not your involvement. Never lose sight of the goal of enlightenment through your life. The spiritual courses are undertaken to unfold the divinity within you. They pertain to the terrestrial realm. They can reach you only to the point of terrestrial perfection, but cannot take you directly to the transcendental reality. The reality lies beyond the terrestrial realm. Hence, you will have to ultimately go beyond all terrestrial effort and cross over to the transcendental. A phenomenon strikingly similar to an athletic event known as the pole vault. In this event, the pole vaulter uses a pole to gain the height required to cross over a bar set for the purpose. The athlete runs with the pole, pegs one end of it on the ground, heaves himself up with the other end to the height of the bar, discards the pole, and rolls over to the other side. No pole vaulter can jump that height without a pole. Equally so, no pole vaulter can jump that height with the pole. If he clings onto the pole after reaching the height, he will dislodge the bar. Only by discarding the pole at that height can he cross over to the other side. In the same manner, you cannot gain enlightenment without the aid of the spiritual courses. Ironically, if you are attached to the courses, cling on to them, you cannot gain it either. The spiritual courses can lift you to the zenith of terrestrial perfection. Thereafter, you must leave them and plunge into the silence of meditation. Then alone would you be able to cross over to the transcendental, attain spiritual enlightenment.
The second danger, the second impediment in the spiritual path is getting involved in the spiritual activity itself. The first one is taking to spiritual path for material purpose, for material gain. Materiality, and including all emotional, intellectual, all put together. Second one is you sincerely start the spiritual pursuit, but then the spiritual practice itself provides you with something which you have been aspiring for throughout in your life. You have just started the journey. When you have commenced it, in the very first step itself, the spiritual activity provides you what you have been dreaming of. Not in the end. Not in the end you are going to achieve it. The moment you get onto the path itself, you just take few steps. Baby steps you take here itself will give you a tremendous peace, balance, clarity, success. All that will happen. All that you have been wanting in life, you will get it. And that's where the whole problem starts. Remember, the mind till the last minute, as long as it is alive, as long as it is functioning, it will continue to have its traits. What is the fundamental trait of the mind? Wherever it sees a possibility of peace, bliss, joy, contentment, satisfaction, etc., it will get attached. Right? That is the nature of mind. Now, the moment you get attached here, instantly the whole flavor of your spiritual effort changes. What is that? Again, it has indications. Again, it's very easy to identify that. It's not so difficult. Only thing is you have to know. And of course, you need to understand also. First thing you need to know whether it is there anything to do with spiritual first. So the moment a person starts the spiritual journey, he will start feeling it. What is it? Earlier, casually people say, "Sir, earlier I used to get angry so much. Now I am not getting angry so much." This. So either you understand, you assess anything with the relative points. The relative points can be your own past or the people around you. You are going to be judging yourself only based on your past. This man started with business. He has become a millionaire. Immediately we say, yeah, you should be happy, no, for that. No, sir, before starting he was a billionaire. Then that millionaire is what now? Now you don't call him as a great businessman, you see. You don't say. Now, either you assess based on the past or you assess based on the people around you. And the moment you start the journey, you know what will happen? Both these factors which is familiar to us starts showing a favorable sign, positive sign. What used to agitate you earlier, what used to tempt you earlier is no longer tempting to you, and what is agitating to people around you, what is that which is tempting to people around you is not tempting to you anymore. So obviously you will start thinking what now? I have grown. This thought is what he is referring as getting attached. Getting attached means what? You start believing yourself to be this. The relative, the comparative one, itself is taken as an end point. The relative is taken as absolute. That is the greater impediment, he says, in the spiritual path. That's what he quotes the Isavasya Upanishad. Andam Tamaha says. It is those who are involved in the material, he says, blinding darkness. Right? Whereas those who are involved in the spiritual path, greater darkness. Greater darkness means greater than blinding darkness. Darkness, blinding darkness. What can be greater than a blinding darkness? That's where it looks so scary. There are few things in the spiritual, textbooks, the scriptures, which really scares. One is this. You feel, my God. Why? Because the mind always carries that tendency. Till the last minute, it will have that weakness. Weakness to get involved to the source of solace, source of joy, source of success. Now, the moment it starts practicing the spiritual path of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, immediately it starts experiencing all this. What is dangerous in that? Danger, problem. What is the problem there? Okay, sir, we get involved in that. So what? First problem is the moment you start feeling this, moment you start taking a particular spiritual course, a particular spiritual path and get involved. In today's class, whenever I say practicing spiritual, immediately you have to understand involved in that spiritual. Okay? You don't have to keep repeating it. The moment you take to the spiritual path, mind starts believing that it is doing something great. It starts doing something extraordinary. The moment I start believing that I am doing something great, I am doing something extraordinary, how do I look upon people around me? I will invariably start looking down upon them. Right? This is a classic sign of involvement in the spiritual path. And not only this, you take to one particular course. You do one particular thing. Let's say you start practicing Karma Yoga, let's say. The moment you start practicing Karma Yoga, you start believing that other paths are waste of time. That's called involvement. Attachment to spiritual path means that. The moment you get attached to that path, to your path, immediately you say what? I don't believe in other paths. All other paths are waste of time. You got to serve the world. You see, no point in simply sitting and crying. In front of the deity, you sit and keep crying and singing bhajan. Jang, 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 you go on bhajana. Waste of time. And definitely attending classes and study, it's even worse actually. At least that fellow is slightly better. The fellow who is studying and all, lecture, absolute waste. If you start taking to the path of Jnanam, what do you do immediately? You immediately call those people as involved, emotional, and dismiss that. And people who are going out and serving, you call them extroverted. You dismiss those people as extroverted guys, and you dismiss these people as emotional personalities. Gone. And if you take to Bhakti, immediately that person says, they also quote scriptures. In Kali Yuga, Bhakti is the only way. Nobody asks what was said before, what was said after. They just take that one line and say, that is final. Okay, man, this is told when? What was said before that? What was said after that? They say, all that need is what? Bhakti. If that feeling is not there, If you can't have that affection, if you cannot have that compassion, if you cannot have that love, devotion, life is not worth living. This is dry. Intellectual study and all this is dry. Service is meant only for fellows who don't know what else to do in life. That is also dismissed. You start looking down upon other practices. Only my practice. Vedanta is greatest, correct. Right. But since I am studying Vedanta, and those who are not studying Vedanta, what about those people? This is the problem of this involvement in the spiritual path, he says. These things will trigger your ego and disturb your relationships and people around you. You will become a nuisance to the world instead of a value addition. See, you become a great problem for others. Instead of being a solution to the people around you, you become the problem. Why? This ego, that ego trip that you get in. From where that comes, you get into that involvement. Sir, this is why I am not going to have any relationships. I am going to take sannyas. Then there is no problem, no. Only if I am interested in relationships, all these arguments are valuable. I am not going to have any relationships with people. You only said no. Stress is from internal. It is not external. If they are getting stressed, it is their problem. It is not my problem, sir. If they are getting agitated, it is not my problem. It is their problem. Let them handle it. What of it to me? In what way this is an impediment to me? Andam tamaha veshanti ye vidyam upasate. Those who get involved. Here it is far more greater. What is the greatest one here? The greater difficulty here is you started off putting that spiritual effort. The moment you get involved, that effort will stop. That is a great danger here. The danger is not with reference to the relationships that you will have. You will become a problem to the world. Not that sense. That is also included, yes. But critical one is not that. The main factor is the effort that you have been putting in. That effort itself will stop. If you have been practicing a particular spiritual journey, you have to move from one layer of effort to another layer of effort, no? Isn't it? You can't continue the same effort. All the study that you have done, all that knowledge that you have gained to get the promotion from 8th standard to 9th standard will be of no use to you to pass the 9th standard exam. Isn't it? Again you have to study. Again you have to struggle with the textbook. Again you have to work out to pass the 9th standard exam. All that knowledge, all that effort that you had put in, all that intelligence that you had developed to pass that 9th standard will not help you to pass 10th standard. Again what you have to put? Of course, this will form a good foundation. This is the foundation. The 8th standard mastery is a foundation for you to learn, understand the 9th standard syllabus. Right? If you are very poor in 8th standard syllabus, then your ability to master that 9th standard also will get reduced considerably, or you have to put in much more effort. Right? However, this itself will not take you there. Similarly, in the spiritual path, the effort that you had put in to knock off certain surface desires cannot be used. That wisdom, that knowledge, that effort, that prayatna is not enough. You have to do enhanced prayatna for you to handle the deeper desires, deeper attachments. Now, the danger here is the moment you start reveling in the joy in that spiritual course, what happens? Because essentially, for you to strive, what is needed? You need some pressure, isn't it? If there is no pressure at all, you will not put in any effort. You will stop. See, you will stop. You need little amount of that pressure should be experienced. The pain should be experienced by you. If there is no pain at all in life, then what will motivate you? What will drive you to get out? Because you will start experiencing the samsara itself is so nice, so good. The unselfish action itself, in the goodness itself, you will get involved. Because the goodness itself is so pleasant. It is. Unselfishness itself is so pleasant, so comforting, so soothing, so satisfying. What will drive you to conceive of something higher than this? Unless you see a defect in that, unless you see what is the dosha in this. See, the moment you get involved, this is the problem. So the moment you get involved in the practice of karma yoga, you get involved in karma yoga, you get involved in bhakti, you get involved in jnanam, you can get involved in any one of that, he says. You can get involved with the practice of karma yoga and say what? Only because of me the world is standing. Like every parent believes, if I am not there, what will happen to my child? Every leader thinks, if I am not there, what will happen to my company? Right? Without Mahatma Gandhi, what would have happened to the whole world? India. Without him, what would have happened? It's surviving, no? It's going on. Without him, what will happen? Without that, what will happen? So, the moment you start doing the practice, the moment you start serving, instantly the benevolent ego takes over. Earlier you have a benevolent ego, now you have developed a benevolent ego, says Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Either you had a negative ego, now you have a positive ego. In bhakti, what happens? The devotion itself is so joyful, so joyful, so joyful, you will not even want God after that. Say, I don't even want you. The joy of devotion, involvement, because it is joyful. Now you can't say it is not joyful. It is joyful. That is the tragedy. See, you are a benevolent person. You are unselfish. So when you start doing serving, you have become unselfish. You have become a benevolent personality. Now the benevolent personality will have a satisfaction of its own. Now how are you going to get out of it? The moment you start gaining knowledge, the sheer theoretical understanding of the subject itself will make you to believe that you have understood. Theoretical exposure, the theoretical exposure to these words, because these words themselves are so potent, so strong. You just have to learn that word, that's about it. You learn that word will give you that belief that you have attained it already. It is, you can't distinguish between conviction. Someone speaking out of, see, there are three ways of speaking. Remember, when you intellectual transaction means, how do you recognize the intellectual transaction? It's only through words. Only when you listen to someone or when you talk. Now, either case, when a person is speaking, there are three layers in which a speech can happen. Speech can happen by sheer memory. See, you hear something again and again and again and again and again and again for a period of time. Right? The moment that idea comes, instantly, all that you have heard comes out. Right? That's called speaking out of memory. Second one is speaking out of conviction. See, second is slightly better. Superior to that is conviction. It is not just memory, now it is understanding. The third one is speaking out of being. From being, the words come out. See, words coming out of memory, words coming out of a deep conviction. Deep conviction, how do you get a difference? You give. There are three layers of ignorance, three layers of effort you put in to overcome that ignorance. What is the three layers of effort? Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. The one who has done only Shravana, memory. The one who has done Shravana plus Manana is conviction. The one who has done Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana, words come from being. The problem is, when you get involved in this, at Shravana itself you will start believing that you have reached to that Nididhyasana. See, danger. That is the real danger in the spiritual. Of the three, I say the most dangerous one is the third one. Because it is so fine, it is so subtle, it is so difficult to decipher between the things. Like I said, to decipher between three people speaking. Now, you get impressed by whom? If you see, your impression will be more with reference to the person who has a great memory. Sir, quotations. Suddenly he is talking about Shakespeare. From Shakespeare he is jumping on to Einstein. From Einstein he is jumping on to calculus. From calculus to, suddenly he comes to Kalidasa. From Kalidasa, he jumps over to this, that Upanishad, and this one, that one. And then suddenly he starts talking about the difference between Hume and Hegel. And then suddenly Herbert Spencer comes in. This one comes in, that one comes in. My God, so much is there. Fascinating it is. That thought itself is so enchanting. See, the very idea. And you go little, put an effort. By somehow you overcome that and move to the next one, you get the deep conviction. And to know the difference between conviction and being. I didn't want to use the word experience, but there's no other way. See, speaking out of experience is totally different from speaking out of conviction. Speaking out of memory is totally different from conviction. See, we can't even distinguish between speaking out of memory and speaking out of conviction. And the one who speaks out of conviction, we take that person to be enlightened already. No, it's a long way to go. But for us, we can't see the difference. You see, everything looks so easy. At least when it comes to involvement in that Karma Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga, there is something tangible, something visible, something workable for us. Some rupture, some irritation, some fight will cause, some ego clash will happen. There is a possibility for you to wake up. If you get involved in Karma Yoga, if you start developing that benevolent ego, sir, what is this, sir? I've been good to everyone, but nobody likes me. Why? They ask. What is it? Sir, I've been doing good only to him. I've done good to this person. I've done good to this person. I've been good to these people. I've been good to everybody, but then nobody likes me. Why? See, that possibility for you to wonder, for you to question, for you to probe comes there. A possibility for you to wake up slightly less, but it's possible when it comes to involvement in bhakti. My God versus your God. Who is greater? Who is bigger? My guru or your guru? Fight. Yeah, possible. You see? Amitabh Bachchan or Dharmendra. Isn't it? There's a fight. Rajinikanth or Kamala Hassan. There's a fight. Possibility. Same way we fight. My God versus your God. Fight. There is a possibility. Because of that fight, there is a possibility. But when it comes to involvement in this, you see, this involvement in this practice of Jnana Yoga, will say what? Everything is fantastic. Whole life will look so nice. And you can't even know that sheer understanding, that conviction that you are only convinced there is Brahman, that's all. And of course, nothing can shake that conviction. It's not just a belief anymore. It is a deep-rooted conviction. But then, that conviction itself becomes, how do you know, more difficult to recognize the agitation at this stage. To recognize the disturbance. Not that the disturbance will not be there. Disturbances are there. But the problem is your ability to recognize that. You get numb. You get numb to that pain. That is the danger. That is the impediment in the spiritual path. The moment you hear all this, you say, yo, sir, next week I'm not attending your class. You see, this is the problem now. You only told, "Oh, I'm not going to get involved with any one of these things." To which he says, you cannot do it without. And in fact, Ramtirtha goes one step above. He says, at bayonet's point, you have to turn to spiritual path. You can't escape. There's no choice. That's where he gives the example of a pole vaulter. You cannot cross the bar with the pole, nor can you cross the bar without the pole. So what you have to do, use that pole, take that lift. Once you hit that highest point possible by the pole, using the pole you hit the highest point. At that point, you drop the pole and jump over. Using the pole itself as a launch pad. Use that pole and cross over, because you are not interested on the road, you are not interested in the car, you are interested in the destination. Get onto the car, drive the car. Once you reach your beloved's house, what are you supposed to do? Get out of the car and go into the room. You cannot be sitting inside the car only. It's only car brought me, no? So car is so comfortable it is. I am sitting in the car. I will be. That is the redundancy here. He says, the spiritual path is do this. You use it. You develop that gratitude and cross over. Build that gratitude for the path. The path has been helpful to you. Use that deity. Use that cause. Use that action. Use that emotion. Use that thought process to cross over. And be grateful to that whole thing throughout. And that is the way you overcome, he says. So he has given us what is the impediment, understand that impediment, and how do you overcome that impediment without losing the track, how to use it. Right? With that he concludes the chapter, Use and Abuse of Religion. We'll continue in the next class.